The warning beacons pulsed red across Evan's visor as his transport skimmed over the crystalline wasteland. Every signal screamed the same message. Turn back! Restricted zone! Lethal energy readings! He ignored them all. Evan Reeves had spent 3 years cataloging alien ruins across the outer rim and the towering structures ahead, spiraling monuments that pierced the violet sky. Called to him like nothing before. His academic credentials had gotten him here. His stubbornness kept him going. The ruins emerged from the morning mist like the ribs of some colossal beast. Evan landed his craft in their shadow and immediately felt it. A thrumming vibration that resonated in his chest, almost like a heartbeat that wasn't his own. Beautiful, he whispered, running his gloved hand across stone covered in glowing symbols. Then the ground shook. It wasn't a tremor. It was a footstep. Evan spun, his breath catching as a figure emerged from behind the tallest spire. She was enormous. Easily 70 feet tall, with skin that shimmered between deep azure and midnight blue, marked with luminescent patterns that flowed like liquid light. Her eyes, brilliant gold and ancient, fixed on him. You shouldn't be here, human. Her voice resonated through the air itself, carrying both warning and something that sounded like loneliness. Evan's survival instinct screamed at him to run. Instead, he removed his helmet, letting her see his face. I'm Evan, and I think I'm exactly where I need to be. Thria, that's what the local settlers had called her, always in hushed, fearful tones, tilted her head, studying this strange creature who didn't flee. Around her, the air shimmered with barely contained energy, distorting reality itself. They sent you to study ruins, not to die. She took a step closer, and Evan felt the raw power emanating from her like heat from a star. My presence is toxic. My power tears things apart. Then why am I still standing? The question seemed to surprise her. For 17 cycles, no one had approached her. Her own people had exiled her here, too afraid of what she'd become after the awakening, when her body had surged with ancient energy she couldn't control. Accidents had happened. People had died. But this human stood firm, curiosity burning brighter than fear in his dark eyes. Foolish or brave, Thria murmured, kneeling down to bring her face closer to his level. Even kneeling, she towered over him. I haven't decided which, Evan smiled, already unslinging his scanner. Let's go with brave. Now, can you tell me about these ruins? Because I think they're connected to you somehow. For the first time in years, something sparked in Thria's chest that wasn't destructive energy. It was hope. 3 weeks into his unauthorized stay, Evan had converted a section of the ruins into a makeshift research station. Solar panels powered his equipment, and he'd arranged his bedroll beneath an archway covered in the most intricate symbols he'd ever encountered. Thria visited every evening. At first, she'd maintained distance, sitting on the far side of the clearing while Evan worked. But each night, she moved a little closer, drawn by his excited explanations of what he was discovering. Look at this, Evan called out, projecting a hologram of the symbols he'd been mapping. These aren't just decorative, they're a language. But more than that, they're instructions. Thria leaned forward, her massive form casting shadows across his equipment. Instructions for what? Energy regulation. Evan's fingers flew across his datapad. Your people's ancestors didn't just build temples here. They built, I don't know, I guess you'd call it a stabilization matrix, for people like you. There are no people like me. Bitterness crept into her voice. I'm an aberration. The awakening broke me. Or maybe it revealed what you were always meant to be. Evan looked up at her, unflinching. These ruins are thousands of years old. Your ancestors clearly dealt with this before. You're not broken, Thria. You're just incomplete. She stared at him, those golden eyes searching his face for deception or false hope. Finding neither, she slowly extended one massive hand, palm up, an invitation. Evan didn't hesitate. He climbed into her palm, feeling the warmth of her skin through his boots as she lifted him to eye level. Why aren't you afraid of me? The question was soft, vulnerable. Because I see you. Not just your power, but you. His hand pressed against her thumb, tiny by comparison. You're careful. Even now you're controlling your strength to hold me safely. That's not the action of someone who can't control themselves. Thria's breath hitched. When was the last time someone had touched her without flinching, without fear? Show me, she whispered. Show me what the ruins say. They worked through the night, Evan explaining, while Thria helped activate ancient mechanisms he couldn't reach. The symbols began to glow brighter, responding to her presence, and slowly a pattern emerged. A network of energy channels that matched the luminescent patterns on Thria's own skin. As dawn broke, Evan made the connection. It's like acupuncture for energy. These ruins aren't meant to suppress your power. They're meant to teach you how to flow it properly. Thria, I think I can help you. She set him down gently, hope and fear warring in her expression. And if you're wrong, if I hurt you? You won't. He placed his hand on her finger again, the gesture becoming familiar between them. Trust me, I'm impossible to get rid of. The process took weeks of careful preparation. Evan mapped every energy channel in the ruins, cross-referencing them with the patterns on Thria's skin. Each night they worked together, and each night the distance between them shrank, physically and emotionally. Tell me about Earth, Thria said one evening, lying on her side so she could watch Evan work without looming over him. He smiled, sitting against her arm like it was a warm wall. It's smaller than you'd think. Blue and green from space. My family lives near the ocean. You can hear the waves at night. Do you miss it? Sometimes. He glanced up at her. But I found something here worth staying for. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Thria's hand moved slowly, carefully, until one finger stroked down his back, a gesture of affection that made Evan close his eyes and lean into her touch. You're playing with fire, human, she murmured, but there was warmth in her voice. I've always been good with heat. The ritual began on the night of the dual moons. Evan had programmed the sequence into the ruined systems, and Thria stood at the center of the ancient plaza, surrounded by pillars that hummed with awakening power. Remember, Evan called from his control station, don't fight it. Let the energy flow through the channels, just like we practiced. Thria nodded, closing her eyes. The ruins blazed to life, beams of light connecting to the patterns on her skin. She gasped as power surged through her, but this time it didn't tear and rage. It flowed. The light intensified until Evan had to shield his eyes. When it faded, Thria stood perfectly still, eyes wide with wonder. I can feel it, she whispered. It's not fighting me anymore. It's part of me. She took a step, then another. No ground tremors, no reality distortions. She knelt beside Evan, and for the first time she could control exactly how much force she used. Her fingers, still massive compared to him, brushed his cheek with perfect gentleness. You did it, she breathed. You actually did it. We did it. Evan leaned into her touch, his hand covering one of her fingertips. I told you. Not impossible. Just misunderstood. That night, Thria did something she hadn't done in years. She cried, and Evan held onto her finger, letting her know she wasn't alone anymore. Later, as the moon set, Thria carefully lifted Evan and pressed him against her chest, cradling him in both hands. Her heartbeat thundered around him, steady and strong. Stay, she whispered. Don't go back to Earth. He kissed her palm. I'm not going anywhere. With her power finally under control, Thria began to explore the world she'd been exiled from. But she didn't go alone. Evan was always with her, riding on her shoulder or cradled in her hands, his presence a constant comfort. The settlers were terrified at first, but word spread quickly. The Giantess could control herself. More importantly, she was using her power to help, lifting fallen trees, repairing damaged structures, even shaping the crystalline landscape into terraced farms.
They're calling you a guardian now,
Evan said one evening, lounging against Thria's collarbone as she reclined in their favorite clearing. Her heartbeat was a soothing rhythm beneath him. They called me a monster before. Her voice rumbled through her chest into him. Names change quickly. But you haven't changed. You're just finally able to show who you always were. Thria's hand came up, one finger tracing down Evan's body with exquisite care. He shivered at the touch, and she felt it, smiling. You're so small, so fragile. Sometimes I forget how careful I need to be. You've never hurt me. He turned, pressing himself against her finger. Not once. The intimacy between them had grown naturally, carefully. Size was a challenge, but not an impossible one. Thry had learned to use her fingertips with incredible precision, and Evan had learned every sensitive spot on the acres of her skin. That night, under the stars, they explored new boundaries. Thry laid on her back in the soft moss, and Evan walked across her body, pressing kisses to her skin as her breath quickened. Each kiss sent shivers through her, and she made sounds of pleasure that resonated in his bones. "Here?" he asked, finding a spot where her luminescent patterns pulsed brighter. "Yes," she gasped. "Evan, please." He learned her body like he'd learned the ruins, with patience, curiosity, and deep appreciation. And Thria learned how to touch him with devastating gentleness, using her smallest finger to trace patterns that made him gasp her name. They found ways to be together that transcended size. Moments where the physical differences didn't matter, because the connection ran so much deeper. When Thry cradled Evan against her chest afterward, both of them breathless and satisfied, she knew with absolute certainty. She loved this impossible human. "I never thought I could have this," she whispered into the night. Evan kissed her skin. "You deserve everything. I'll spend forever proving it to you." The settlers began to notice how the giantess and the human looked at each other. Some were shocked. Others saw it as proof that understanding could bridge any divide. Thria didn't care what they thought anymore. She'd spent too long being alone. Never again. 6 months after Evan had first arrived, the Stellar Council sent a delegation to investigate reports of the reformed Giantess. They expected to find a threat that needed containment. Instead, they found a thriving community with Thria at its heart, and a human who refused to be separated from her. "This is unprecedented," the head counselor said, her crystalline features reflecting disapproval. "The human has clearly compromised." "Careful." Thry's voice was soft but carried undeniable power. She stood at her full height, Evan sitting on her shoulder, his hand resting against her neck. "Choose your next words wisely." The counselor saw the protective fury in those golden eyes and reconsidered. "We simply question whether a human can properly understand." "I understand that you exiled her instead of helping her," Evan interrupted, standing up on Thria's shoulder. "I understand that you labeled her impossible because you were too afraid to try. And I understand that she's done more good in 6 months than your council has done in years." The settlers who had gathered to witness the confrontation murmured agreement. Thria's hand came up, and Evan stepped into her palm, letting her bring him to her chest. The gesture was both protective and affectionate, and it spoke volumes about their bond. "I'm not leaving," Evan said clearly. "And if you try to remove me or exile Thria again, you'll have to explain to the entire stellar community why you're punishing someone for being different. In this age of enlightenment, I don't think that'll go well for you." The standoff lasted for heartbeats. Then the counselor bowed stiffly. "Perhaps we were hasty. The council will reconsider its previous judgments." After they left, Thria let out a breath she'd been holding. "You just made enemies of some very powerful people." "Worth it." Evan grinned up at her. "Besides, I've got a pretty powerful girlfriend." "Girlfriend?" Thria's laugh was like thunder and music combined. "Is that what humans call it when they're hopelessly in love?" "Among other things." He pressed his face against her palm, feeling her pulse. "Thria, I need to ask you something." She went still, sensing the seriousness in his tone. "I can't go back to Earth, not permanently, but I want to make this official, in whatever way matters to your people. I want everyone to know that I choose you, not just for now, forever." Thria's eyes shimmered with tears that could have filled pools. Slowly, carefully, she brought Evan to her lips, kissing him with a tenderness that belied her massive size. "In my culture, we bond through energy exchange. You'd carry part of my essence, and I'd carry part of yours. It's permanent, eternal." "Show me." The ritual was simple but profound. Thria placed Evan against the center of her chest, where her heart thundered beneath her skin. She focused her energy, now perfectly controlled, and let it flow into him in a gentle stream. He gasped as warmth spread through his body, and when he placed his hand against her skin, his own life force flowed back. For a moment, they were perfectly united, two beings sharing one existence. When it ended, luminescent patterns like Thra's had appeared on Evan's arms, proof of their bond. And on Thra's chest, right over her heart, a small mark glowed in the exact size and shape of Evan's hand. "Now everyone will know," she whispered. "You changed everything. You made the impossible real." Years later, their story would be told across worlds. The giantess who learned to control, and the human who taught her that being different wasn't the same as being broken. They became symbols of understanding over fear, love over prejudice. But to them, the story was simpler. Two impossible beings who found each other and refused to let anything, not size, not fear, not the entire universe, keep them apart. And they lived that impossible love every single day.